I need to build a new pedalboard, so let's build one together. Well, technically it isn't actually a new pedalboard. Basically, over the last couple of weeks, me and my band hired out an Airbnb and went and recorded. And to make things like creatively different, we didn't want to just use our boards. So we basically stripped them apart and then put pedals in different orders and stuff so that it wasn't just like the same go-to effects each time that we normally do, and gave us some new cool sounds that we would never have got if we just used our boards. So my board's completely stripped apart, but I'm going on tour to Europe with my band next week, and so I basically need to rebuild this absolute monstrosity, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to share the tips that I use when building a pedalboard. Step 1, I would say, what are you using this board for? Like I said, I'm building a board to take it on tour, so I need something that fits in all the sounds I need, but also is easy to carry. But for some people, that'll be building a board that they want to play around with sounds in their bedroom. Now look, I absolutely love pedals. We've built up like way too many over the years, just from buying stuff, like mainly secondhand, just finding new sounds and then just buying it and then being like, oh, I need to sell that other one, but then you never get around to it. There's just way too many now, and they can't all come on tour. So what I tend to do is I'll pick a few different categories of pedal, and then I'll just choose one from the amount of pedals that I've got that fit into that category. But more on that later. As well as that, I need a board that's going to be really accessible if something goes down during a performance, like, I don't know, a distortion pedal goes down. I need to be able to isolate that and then pull it out of the chain, and so like my whole guitar doesn't go down for a whole song, which has happened way too many times. So I have actually got better at doing that and being able to find where everything goes and just quickly replug everything else back in. So once you've established what you're going to be using the board for and what are the essential things that you need on it and how portable it really needs to be and how accessible it really needs to be, you can then go to step 2, which is the board. There's obviously a bunch of different pedal boards you can buy, and probably one of the most well-known ones is the pedal train. This one's been lent to us by a friend. Actually, it was mainly just to use the pedals that were on it. I know one of the things that makes these so good is that you can mount your power supply and all of the cabling that powers your pedals underneath. And so it just keeps it out of the way of your pedals and not like in your board. But if you're going to be touring with it, you don't want it just kind of out in the van, just with pedals everywhere, because something's going to get broken. So you're going to need some sort of flight case. And obviously, these things aren't cheap. Like, this is the smaller one, and I'd need something bigger because I've got more pedals to fit on. And so it's probably going to start getting really pricey. I looked online, and the bigger one, I think it's the PT2 now. That's like 200 quid with the hard case, which is what I'd need. But when I bought my pedal board all those years ago, I didn't have the money to do that. But luckily, there was these that were available. The Diego Showman, I think it was called. It's basically just a flat board, and you can't fit anything underneath it, but what it does come with is it comes with a lid, this thing here. So you've basically got your flight case already there, and it just clips into the board, and then your pedals stay on the board, and then the lid clips on. I couldn't actually quite remember how much I paid for it, but I looked, and I think it was about £100 for everything, whereas the pedal train was £200, so it was double. However, it now looks like Diego aren't making them anymore, so I guess there must be another company doing the same sort of thing. And for me, I reckon this has lasted like the best part of 8 or 9 years, so it's done really well for that time frame. However, I think maybe I will eventually move on to the pedal train. But I remember when I actually bought it, they did a bigger one, which I bought first, and it came, and it was huge, and I just didn't have the pedals to fill it, and it just looked absolutely ridiculous. And also, I think all the others in the band were really annoyed because it wouldn't fit in the van. We basically play a ridiculous game of Tetris every time we load the van. But anyway, make sure that you don't go too big and too small. What I would say is just lay the pedals out on the floor, the ones that you want to take, and then kind of measure around them. Obviously leave gaps for where the leads are going to go and where the power's going to plug in, and then maybe have a little buffer around it, and then look online for those dimensions, and then you'll definitely be good to go. Nobody wants that board that's just a big bit of open space with like 3 pedals in the middle. There's nothing nothing less cool. Step number 3. Once you've worked out what you're going to use your board for and what size you need, you're going to need some power. I'm going to be honest, I'm no pro with this. I know a little bit, so I'm going to be fairly brief. But those ones that you buy kind of like this, where you join them all together on a daisy chain, I would avoid those if you could, because they seem to add a load of noise, because you're basically using one power supply to just do everything, and then you're just building up all of this hiss and stuff from all of those pedals just building up. And then if you're by a train station or something in a dodgy venue, it's going to sound awful. Anyway, there's like a ridiculous amount of options out there. The one that I had first, once I upgraded from one of those daisy chain things, was this MXR brick. So basically, this thing features a bunch of 9-volt inputs, and then you've got your 18-volt in, which is the power supply, and then two 18-volt outs as well. And I've read a bunch of stuff online where people have said that it's not actually that good because apparently it's not fully isolated and stuff. But to me, using this, it sounds great. And I guess I was suckered into it a bit, because what I use in my board currently is this Voodoo Labs one. And apparently they're like way better and the isolation's better on them, but I can honestly never tell the difference. I think I have exactly the same amount of noise that I had before when I had the MXR. So take of that what you will. The MXR is cheaper by about half the price, so yeah. Anyway, the Voodoo Lab features a bunch of 9-volt, normal, standard 9-volt outputs, and then it's got two outputs that support a higher ampage, and then it's got these two, which I think you can give it less power if you want to. This one doesn't actually feature any 18 or 12 or any of those, but most pedals are 9-volt anyway, so you should be alright. I think the main things that are important here are the isolated outputs, and then it's just looking at what's called the amperage, which is basically how much current the pedals are drawing. Now, most pedals like these, I know it's just a tuner, but they're drawing, I think it's like 100 milliamps. Whereas, just to be difficult, the new like modern Strymon pedals, they're drawing, I think it's around 400 milliamps. And if you look on the pedal power, this Voodoo Labs one, these normal outputs here are only 100, whereas these support higher amperage. The other thing that you really need to look out for is the polarity. So you can see here that there is a little circle with a dot, and that's pointing towards minus. And when it's that way, it basically means that it's a negative polarity. Most pedals actually have that, and all the ones I have do. So I don't have to worry about that, but just check it out because you can really damage stuff if it is like that. And you need a little adapter that will swap the polarity for you so you can use your power supply. The only thing that might catch you out with power is that some pedals have weirdly different style inputs. So on the small clone, which is probably the coolest chorus pedal of all time, it has like a really tiny input, if you see there, and it's not like all the other ones. So basically I had to buy this little adapter here, and the Rat pedal is also the same, and it basically just plugs into your normal adapter, and then that bit goes into the pedal and it powers it just fine. Now, I've got a few pedals in my board, probably too many pedals to try and fit in a board that's maybe not big enough. And I'm using that Voodoo Labs power supply, and it doesn't have quite the amount of inputs. So the way I get around that is I use the power supplies that come with the pedals, and then just use a good old 4-way and just stick it at the top of my board. And I don't know whether that's like good practice. Maybe it adds noise. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to work for me. And I just stick it at the top, and then it means I don't have to buy another one because I can't afford it. So that kind of wraps up power there. And like I said, I'm not a pro on it, but I think as long as you're checking out the voltage of the pedal, the amperage of the pedal, the little inputs that it takes, and the polarity, then you're probably going to be all good. Now what this means is that we can move on to my favourite and last step, actually choosing what pedals are going to go on your board. Like I said before, my band makes music that's somewhere in between alternative rock and shoegaze, and so I basically need pedals that can do all of that but without taking every single pedal we have with us. I've actually done another video where I claimed that I think you only need 5 categories of pedal for making this sort of music, and I'll put that there for you now. In my board I do actually have more pedals, and that was just like what I think is a bare minimum for that kind of sound. So for the touring board I'm going to make, it's going to have an overdrive, it's going to have a distortion, which is like a step up distortion, and then a big fuzz, and then I'm going to have some sort of delay, a chorus, a reverb, and then like a special move pedal, because that's all the room I've got. I actually play wirelessly as well, so I've got like this wireless adapter that goes in there too. And then I've got to fit all of that into this board. It is kind of hard, but it's definitely doable. Now obviously, I could choose anything from those pedals that we've got to fit into the categories, but my favourites at the moment are the Plumes for overdrive. I'm currently using a Boss DS1 for my distortion. I've got the little Smashing Pumpkins Big Muff, the op-amp one. I've got a good old-fashioned DD7 for my delays. I've got the other Nirvana classic, the small clone for chorus. And then currently the Strymon Blue Sky for some reverbs. And also, I said there was some room for a special moves pedal. Well, for me, on this board, it's going to be the Digitech Whammy. There's a song in our set that has a bit of a whammy solo, so I feel like that's the one that needs to make it. And it features on a couple of other tracks as well, but just in the verses, just adding harmonies and stuff of the guitar sound. And this is how it looks when it's all in the board. I think one thing that's weird that you'll probably notice is that I have my tuner quite late on in the chain. And I know that seems ridiculous because you want that signal going straight into your tuner, but for me, I basically use it as a kill switch. I know it means that I have to turn off like every other pedal before tuning, but it seems to work out really well for me anyway. Because when I finish a song, if I want to stop it dead, I'll hit the tuner and the reverb together and then it completely kills it dead. But if not, then I'll hit the tuner and then that reverb tail will continue and it gives like a really nice sound. And then I basically just flick everything else off and tune, and then we're good to go. I think if you take those steps outlined there, then you'll build something that you're happy with, no matter what you're using it for. If you've got any questions about why I did things a certain way, then drop me a comment down below, and then I'll get back and let you know my method behind the madness. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be amazing, and then you can watch some other videos right here.